topic, the theme for my doctoral dissertation was showbread. And it is very strange how I picked up this topic. It was because I was fighting for years with the profanation of the Eucharist. So, and even I wrote here in Buffalo in 2015 my book about the profanation of the Eucharist.
And you so graciously brought it over today. This is my first time ever seeing it, and it's here. It's called The Horror of the Profanation of the Most Holy Eucharist. Rebel priests who have the blood of Christ on their hands. That's intense.
Yes, it was written in the catacombs.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
And I was surprised with the publisher.
In Rome?
No, here in Buffalo. I was here in Buffalo 2012 through 15. So
wow.
This book was published in 2015. And you would not believe when the book arrived. It was on Good Friday, maybe 3 hours before the liturgy.
Of 2015?
2015.
That would have been April 3rd.
I was serving at Corpus Christi, and the rectory in the Corpus Christi parish is connected with the church. You go on...
And with your legacy.
Yes.
And with your legacy. With what you focused on.
Yes, this was not because I was at Corpus Christi.
No, of course, but it's symbolic.
There is a steep stairway, from the rectory to the vestibule of the church. And I'm coming down, and one of the ushers says, "Father, that's all for you." There were 600, copies of this book because so many I ordered.
Sure.
Was right before the liturgy of Good Friday.
Wow.
And because I knew about the profanation of the Eucharist in the United States and in Canada, and I even wrote a letter to Cardinal Ratzinger about this problem.
Sure.
And he responded that this is absolutely prohibited. What was the problem? That in the parishes where they distributed the blood of Christ under both species, the leftover blood of Christ was not immediately nor completely consumed, but it was being poured down into the so-called sacrarium, because they said that the pipe from the sacrarium goes directly to the ground, and that is why it is permitted. And I said, the sacrarium is not a tabernacle, but nobody wanted to listen to me. So I wrote on December 8th, 1995, I wrote a letter to Cardinal Ratzinger. I had his personal address through an auxiliary bishop of Munich, Germany. And he responded, Ratzinger responded on April 10th, 1996, in which he stated that this is strictly prohibited. And for this practice is excommunication late sententia.
Really?
Ipso facto. The moment you pour the blood of Christ into the sacrarium, you are excommunicated.
And it doesn't need to be a formal proceeding or anything when you have a late sententiae.
And this is one of the 5 sins reserved for the Pope. Only the Pope can give you absolution, or any priest at the moment of death. Because when someone is dying, I have full authority to absolve any kind of sins.
Those are emergency powers.
Yeah, emergency situations. So, and this book...
So it's that serious.
On the back cover, there is a short, resume of the content of this book, where it is written, in the Constitution, in the document Redemptionis Sacramentum, paragraph, I don't remember now.
107.
How much?
107.
107. It is stated very clearly that whoever pours the blood of Christ into the sacrarium incurs excommunication, automatic excommunication. And it is just by chance that this paragraph 107, I quote on page 107.
Oh, there you
I
go.
was not even aware of it, but then when I got the book, I said, oh, wait a minute.
There it is.
Very simple to find, you know.
Wow.
So whoever, you know, purchased this book and he wants to see the whole text, he can go to page 107.
Now, is that binding on just priests or laity as well?
Priests were now, you know.
What if somebody? Is the wine ever supposed to be able to be left over after the mass?
The blood of Christ must be consumed
once it's
immediately and completely.
Consumed. And it should be by the priest, right?
No, not necessarily. It can be also Eucharistic ministers. But it is prohibited to bring the chalices with the blood of Christ to the sacristy. And the people are standing and talking and even
That's prohibited?
Oh, it's prohibited.
That's what I've seen.
No. The blood of Christ is to be consumed at the altar or at the credence altar, you know, table, but not in the sacristy. Immediately and completely. Priest, deacon, Eucharistic minister, basically everyone, you know, if this is too much consecrated, every faithful can consume, you know, the rest of the blood of Christ. But
and what would be a circumstance?
There is another issue which is prohibited.
What's that?
For instance, I saw even in a cathedral, that they distributed the Eucharist under both species, and on both sides they were two Eucharistic ministers with the chalices, and I saw how they emptied one chalice and they had a flagon and they were pouring additionally the blood into the chalice. It is prohibited to pour the blood of Christ from one chalice to another. It is prohibited. You can take hose from one ciborium to put to another ciborium, but because it is liquid, it is prohibited to pour the blood of Christ from one chalice to another, period. So there were a lot of abuses.
This is probably not the place to get into the proper place for Eucharistic ministers as well. That's really an extraordinary circumstance in the texts.
We profit one thing from COVID-19, that the distribution of the Eucharist under both species ceased.
Right.
But we don't know what will be in the future, because now this book, which I wrote, speaks about the past, but we don't know what will be in the future. That is why, you know, I would recommend to order this book. It can be done by Amazon.
Okay, I was going to ask.
Very simple, very simple.
So you hear that, folks? You can get this. It's by Father Mark Kreis, and it's the Horror of the Profanation of the Most Holy Eucharist on Amazon.
And the way I came to the topic of the symbolism of the frankincense and showbread is strange, because the profanation of the Eucharist prompted me to do it as a kind of restitution.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I guess that answers that question.
It's unbelievable.
So it's your love of the Lord in the Eucharist that led you down that path.
Because I experienced so much evil with the profanation of the Eucharist, then I decided, you know, to write my doctorate on showbread, because I knew that in the conclusion I will write that showbread is the Old Testament proto-Eucharist.
Right.
So, and
along with the Todah offering.
Yes. That's behind any doubt, this sacrifice was neglected in the biblical research. And I don't know why. This was a perfect topic for a Ph.D. Perfect.
Wow. What was meant for you?
Yeah, I would prefer not to see the profanation of the Eucharist and not to write on this topic, you know.
Amen.
But this evil practice, and
that ship has sailed, though, unfortunately.
It caused me so much pain and stress that I said I need to do something positive to make the people aware how profound is this sacrifice, and how it was profound already at the time of the Old Testament.
Right.
That it was so precious that they were carrying the showbread from one place to another. Why
even just the tabernacle itself. Look at what happened to Uzzah.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
To touch it is to
Exactly.
die.
Exactly.
You know, if you step out of line, and that's just the what's containing
Yes.
the sacrifice.
Yes.
It's amazing.